The bill I'm about to sign into law, Senate Bill 1070, represents another tool for our state to use as we work to solve a crisis that we did not create and the federal government has refused to fix.
And of course was Arizona Governor Jan Brewer explaining her decision to sign into law the Papers, Please bill, which compels law enforcement officers in Arizona to stop anyone who looks like they might be an illegal immigrant to demand that that person show proof that they are not, in fact, here illegally. In Arizona now, you are presumed illegal unless you can prove otherwise. Papers, please. Arizona needs this new law, in Governor Brewer's estimation, because the federal government is not doing a good enough job dealing with immigration. The Arizona governor is not alone in that assessment. There's actually a fairly wide consensus on both sides of the political aisle that what happened in Arizona only happened because the feds haven't acted to fix the immigration system and the problem of illegal immigration.
This law is a response to the president's and the administration's failure to secure our borders.
Our failure to act responsibly at the federal level.
Arizona has a point, which is the federal government has not done a good enough job.
The federal government, the immigration people, have not enforced the laws.
It's demanding a national answer to immigration policy.
The state of Arizona has decided to take matters into their own hands.
That's why we need comprehensive immigration reform to secure our borders.
After years of inadequate enforcement by the federal government, that states are driven to do this.
If only these guys could get someone in the federal government to listen to them. Wait, aren't they the federal government? Yeah, everybody, both people for the law and people against the law, are all saying that the reason Arizona's law was passed and signed and now exists is because the federal government hasn't acted on immigration reform and or border security. Well, the federal government could act on immigration reform. The federal government is made up of people whose job it is to decide to do things, to fix problems. And if all of these federal lawmakers, all those federal lawmakers you just heard, are lamenting that the federal government hasn't acted on immigration, you wonder, well, they're the federal government. Why aren't they acting? Why isn't anything happening right now on immigration reform?
I just don't think this is the right time to take up this issue.
We've got a lot of work left on our plate between now and the end of the summer.
I think we have to look at the details.
I'd be worried about the nature of the bill that we might see.
It's not a great time to take this issue up in Washington.
But I sure wish Washington would do something. You know, funny thing. Check this out. March 19th, last month, an op-ed titled "The Right Way to Mend Immigration," authored by Charles Schumer, Democrat, and Lindsey Graham, Republican. Here the two of them are putting forward their bipartisan immigration reform plan, strengthening border security and enforcement. They want biometric social security cards to crack down on illegal workers. They want a new official process for temporary workers, and they want a, quote, tough but fair path to legalization for those already here. That was bipartisan immigration reform. A bipartisan immigration reform proposal put forward by Lindsey Graham and Chuck Schumer last month. And now Lindsey Graham is against it. In fact, Lindsey Graham has gone so far as to bail on the bipartisan climate change proposal he was working on with John Kerry as well, because he's mad that Democrats might bring up his immigration reform proposal first. He said, quote, "This comes out of left field. We haven't done anything to prepare the body or the country for immigration." Except for, you know, that time last month when I helped write that op-ed explaining what it was and why we need it. Lindsey Graham now against the thing he co-wrote an op-ed to push for just last month. It's like they say, everybody complains about the weather, but nobody does anything about it. Immigration reform is not the weather. It doesn't just happen on its own while we all sit back as observers of it and complain or cheer. It is a decision that is made actively by politicians. And the decision to not do anything on immigration reform is a decision that is being made right now by specific people, by the Republican Party. They also don't want to do Wall Street reform. And they didn't want to do health reform either, but Democrats got that done anyway. Are Democrats going to get immigration reform done as well? Not if the Republicans can help it. But, you know, that's been true of everything that's gotten done in the last 18 months or so. You can't get away with saying simultaneously that you want something done and that you won't do it. I mean, if you're just some jerk like me talking about politics on TV, or some guy at the water cooler, or someone calling into talk radio, you probably can get away with saying you want the federal government to do something that you won't do yourself. But if you are actually part of the federal government, if you are part of the legislative body that is one branch of the 3 branches of our government that we have in this country, you can't really get away with saying there ought to be a law. Because you make the laws. You can't really get away with saying that something should be done, and also at the same time saying that you refuse to do it. At least you ought not to be able to get away with that.